Hello everyone, I'm Aranth11 and I'm gonna show you how to create Payday2 mods. I will be going over a few types, over BLT mods, music mods and mod override in several types. So let's start off by getting the game files. So to get the game file from Payday2, we have to extract them. So we search for the bundle modder tool. It's in several places, but Luffy has the newest version, and you just download this, move this anywhere, and then you will open it. So I'm just gonna open mine for the example. So I put it in my game folder. Here's the bundle patch. Now what you can do with this tool, currently it's set to Raid World War 2, but you can change this here. So you just go to your Payday2 path, and now it should be switching to Payday2. Yeah, now it does. So you just set your Payday2 path, and then you go to game file extraction. Now what this tool does, it extracts the sort of archived files inside the game, and it turns those into editable files. So what you do is you just select use every bundle, and you select a folder where you are gonna extract to. So I used this folder for myself. Do it on a hard drive if you have one, because disk speed is not a big requirement, but it will extract about 30 to 60 gigabytes of files, so you don't want to fill up your SSD or something. So once we have that extracted, we will have a folder which will look like this. Now there is one thing which is important, and that is that Payday2 uses a sort of encryption for its code files. So when you would just extract it and open a code file, you would not get something like this, but you would get unreadable gibberish. So what you also need to do is you go to the GitHub from one of the members of Mod Workshop and one of the staff members. You can see the link here, and from his BLT you can download the decoded Payday2 Lua files, which will be readable and editable. As you can see, store as a Chinese spy. You can download them here. I'll be waiting a bit and showing you where you can extract them. So you just go into your extract folder, and then when you have the file, you go here, and as you can see, this corresponds with the folders in here. So you just drag them on top of here. Of course, this is not gonna work for me because I already have them in place. So I'm just gonna skip all this, cancel it as soon as I can. It shouldn't take too long. There. Now I have all the script files. Now first of all, I'm gonna show you how to create a mod override type mod. Now what we do is we just create a folder. So I'm just gonna do this on my desktop, and we call it whatever we want to call our mod. So let's say I want to change a random part of the HUD, as that's a easy to notice thing. So HUD edit for guide, I'm gonna call this mod. Now what you do is you search a file that you want to change, and when you find this file, you copy it into your mod, and you make sure that the file path is the exact same as what was in your as in the game source. So let's say I want to change this HUD icon texture. Then I make sure the path is the exact same. So now I cut it, and I make sure this file path is the exact same. So I make a folder called GUIs and a folder called textures, and inside here I put the texture. Now how to edit this texture, that depends on if you use Photoshop or GIMP or simply GIMP. You need a .texture plugin for this. one is in my modding guide on Steam. You can just Google it and you will find it very fast. You can just get the plugin from there, and then on GIMP it will allow you to just open it up. On Photoshop you might have to rename the extension, so you enable this and then you rename this to what type this actually is. This .texture format is the same as .dds files. So if you open it up again, you can see this is the exact same texture. Now, as we see here, we have gotten a cancel texture that's not actually in the game anymore, really, except for some parts. So what we see is we see all the icons, but we also see parts from the Payday the Heist HUD, as you can see. Payday is full of this. There is a lot of reused icons. So what we are gonna do is we are just gonna grab an easy to recognize icon. So let's say we want to change the escape icon. Let's say we want to change the escape icon. So we grab our GIMP, make sure that we are actually opening the DDS file, and we are just gonna change one of these things. So let's say I am gonna change the escape symbol. So I'm just gonna play it into black. This will not be really obvious otherwise. So now our escape icon will be a big black dot. So a very obvious change. So we just override this, and now our texture should be okay. Yes, it is. And now when we have it in this format, rename it back to texture. Now if we put this folder in mod overrides, it will work right away. And this can be done with a bunch of types, except for code mods, which I will be showing later. So we quit this, and I would show you how it works, but I unfortunately can't, as my OBS would not support my Payday 2 showing up. So up to the next thing. For this I'm gonna use my music template. So I'm going to Mods Workshop again, and I search my insert song template. And I'm gonna show you how to create Payday 2 music mods. Now this depends on Birdlib, as you can see, so you need to install that mod. It makes music modding a lot easier. It also requires SuperBLG, by the way, but that's listed on the page itself. So what we do is I'm just going to extract it here as an example. Quit this. Now we have this text, this folder. So now what we have here is a music template for Birdlib. And first of all, you want to go change this folder name, as it will otherwise have issues with other mods. So let's call this guide music. Now inside this folder we place our converted music once we have that. Now you can just use any files, but MP3s are currently broken on the tool that we use. We use Red Video Tools. I cannot show you, but it's a very simple tool. You just Google Red Video Tools, and there you have it, the top hit after the ad. So what you do is you make your music. I will later show you what you need, and then you convert it with Red Video Tools, and then you put it in here. Now how does Payday 2 music works? You have 5 files that you can use for each music track. The first one is the menu track, enabled here. If you want menu track, then you just remove this part and configure the rest, and you will have a menu track. Now how it works is, for menu you better can use the full track, and then we have event bound music. So when heist is here is set to true, and you remove the exclusion marks here, you can configure heist music. Now how that works is when a game reaches a certain event, it will start playing this music. Control means stealth, assault means that the cops are actively engaging you, anticipation is before cops start coming, and setup means that the cops are starting to build up their forces, and therefore I like to call this the build phase and this the stealth phase. So when you want to choose what files you need, you want your converted .movie files in your folder here. So the red video tools will make it a .big file, and then you just rename it to .movie, which is the one of the few formats that Payday2 supports. And then here you select the name of your file. Do not enter the extension, just the name. So let's say we had 4 converted files named stealth, assault, anticipation, which I'm just gonna copy paste here, and we have the build phase. So now it's very easy for us to see, well, what file was what event, which might be difficult if you don't know all the event names by heart. I think these names I give them myself are a bit more obvious. Now by default this is all set to a menu track, so what we are going to do is we are going to give the mod our info on what files we use. So what we do is we just enter all these files here. Now we have 5 entries, so we have enough files for our heist music and our menu music, which is this source part here. This is asking for a menu track, so whatever you enter here is the name of the file that's going to be read here as the menu track. And then what we do is we say, well, we have these names. So what you do is you just copy paste whatever names you chose here and you add them under assets. I'm not going to do it for all of them. So what we also do is we change this change to our guide folder thing, and we'll also repeat it in this part, which I'm also not going to show. Then we choose an ID file mode. Now this ID only is just for references, so you can set it to anything. So I'm just gonna type some random letters and I'm gonna copy it. Now where do we use this? We go to localization, and in here we have the localization for our mod. So what we do is we copy our ID here where custom was, and then we set the name for our music. So I'm just gonna leave them custom music because I don't actually have any music inside this folder. But once I do, this will give them a name in the game. Now we have set all this, well, not actually, but all that remains to do when you have actually done that is give your mod a name. So this will show up in the Birdlib manager, and it will make sure that your mod can be seen in the manager. You don't want it called custom music, so you can just enter the name of your music under name, which is pretty obvious. Now I'm gonna show you how to create a basic BLT mod. So I'm gonna go to my extract folder again, and how BLT mods work is a bit different. So I'm gonna call BLT mod, I don't know how I called it, BLTM. Obvious enough. So now I'm gonna copy 2 template files I use myself into here. Now these are mod.txt and the main.xml file. The main.xml file is a file read by Birdlib, and it can be used for adding auto-updating to your mods. I will show that quickly because it's very useful if you have a work in progress mod. So what you do is when you create a page on Mod Workshop, it will have this ID. So let's say this was my mod. We see an ID here. Now you copy this ID at the end of your link and you put it into here. Even when your mod is not uploaded yet, you can also already see this ID. so you can already configure your auto updating. Then you select your MVS version, which is whatever version is listed here normally. This author has not set any version. And whenever your mod will be uploaded, it will check is the version on my mod workshop page the same as this version. So if it's differently, it will always auto update. So make sure you keep this up to date with what version you're gonna call it on mod workshop. Now you can just enter your name here. This will also show up in the Birdlib manager. So you actually configure something which can also inside your music mods, you can also just copy this line specifically because your mod name is already in there. Now I just named whatever I call my mod. So this is my guide example mod. And if I would have configured this, it would let my game automatically update this from mod workshop if I had configured that. Now we have the more important file. We have the mod.txt file. Now I'm gonna first get a code file that I'm actually gonna edit, because otherwise this will be weird. So I'm just gonna grab a file in here, let's say tweak data, because that's easy, and get a small file. So let's say money tweak data. Now what I need to do again is let the game know where my file was located, but I do not do that with folder structures, but I can just say, well, this file came from, well, I know this by heart, and you enter that here, lib/tweak lower score data, and then you enter the name of the file without extensions. So money tweak data. Now the game will know where the file originates from. So I'm also gonna copy whatever I called it in my mod folder. You can rename it once it is in there. And now the game knows, well, this is whatever code I need to override. Then we have the BLT version going upwards, which means, well, it's made for the second version of BLT. You don't need to change that. Then the RGB, you can select numbers here, 255 or all the way down to 0, and it will give color, so RGB. So let's say I want this all the way green. I'm just going to set this to 255 green. Now the version. This version has nothing to do with updating, so this is only an aesthetic indicator of the version. Then we have contact. This is where your mod users can contact you if your mod breaks or something, the author who made the mod, your description, which will show up in the BLT menu, and the name will show up in the BLT menu. I will leave them on the default ones for now because we don't really need them. So what we can do to mod this file that we dragged in there is we can just edit parts. So let's say I want its number to be 45. But there is one big downside on editing files like this, because you cannot just remove files. I cannot say, well, I want this gun and I will only want this set. You cannot do that. So I could just change values in here, but I cannot go cut functions out, because when you just copy file in here, it will override the entire file, which is quite terrible if you are overriding a massive amount of files or very big files. So generally you want to use hooks. Another reason for this is that your compatibility with other mods will be increased drastically. So what I do is I just go and get my example hook. So here, let's say I want to change the value of a turret, for example, but I'm gonna change all the versions here. So we have some table info which is not needed, so we can just delete this. Now we are hooking this. Now what a hook does is it overrides a function, but only a part of it. So anything you enter under here is overridden. Now this works because you are loading your hook after the actual file instead of overriding the entire file like you did with that hook. So first of all, you select whatever function is in here. So we scroll through and we see, well, this is the only function left in the file. So we just delete everything we are not gonna edit, and we only leave whatever we want to edit, which is some loot values. So we delete subfunctions, making sure that we don't remove any things between these brackets, because you can still not break up partial functions because you will break them. And we just remove this. Keep in mind that certain stats can be limiting whatever you write below them. Now we're gonna keep these local things in normal situations because they will specify some stuff. Now we have whatever we want to edit in here. So only the subfunction self.backed values. So what we do is we enter our function into our hook. So what we do is we put the function in the first part. Then we put the subfunction, which is for us, in it, into the second part. Then we give our function a name, which is only used when you are referencing to it, so we can just enter some random stuff again. Then we copy the paragraphs, adding them to our default paragraph self. Now self is a very common paragraph, which appears very often. So generally you want to enter self here anyway, because the chance that it is in your function is very high. Then we remove the default function name. Now we have entered all the data, and we add a closing bracket because our hook opens with one. So now we are overriding only this part of the function, and the rest will be loaded by the game normally. Now we want to change, let's say we want to make a save 100 value higher. Now in game these values that I chosen as an example are multiplied and way higher, so you cannot just look at this. I think they are about 230 times higher in game. So you need to calculate a bit. So let's say I want unknown loot to be 10,000. This is, by the way, the dentist loot. I know that by heart. So now we have a functioning mod. So we could just put this folder into our mods folder, and we would have a perfectly functioning mod. And that's how you make a BLT mod. Now there are a few other types, like custom weapon mods, which are way too complex to explain, and you could also use models and modify those. But that's pretty complicated, so I will leave that to my text guide, as I think you won't be interested to hear it.